We all want success, but what kind of success are we building? Is it the kind that drains us until we're burned out and ready to walk away? Or is it the kind that sustains us, where our businesses fuel our life instead of consuming it? My amazing guest on today is Sailynn Doyle, and she came to the edge of burnout and almost sold her company until she realized that there's a key to long-term success, and it wasn't about pushing harder. It wasn't about being consumed in her business and working, 70-hour weeks. But it was about creating something sustainable, and her story really helps us to shift from that burnout to that balance, from stress and anxiety to peace. And I'm so excited to dive into it. We talk about saying no more and building support systems and realizing how sleep really does fix everything, which I am a very huge advocate of that. We dive into her human design charts and the gifts that she was born with as a generator, and how she is helping cheer other people on, as well as different layers of her human design chart. It's amazing. So before we dive into this episode, we're going to do a peace investment, right? We need to invest in our peace. Investing in our peace is the greatest return on investment we can ever do for our businesses, we can ever do for our personal life. And so don't skip over this part. I know. So this is probably one of the most important parts of this podcast. So before we dive into this episode, we're going to reset. And if you're sitting down, you can close your eyes. If not, if you're driving or walking, just keep doing this with me. Close your eyes, inhaling fully, and exhale. I really want you to feel, what does that sensation in your body feel like as you're breathing in deeply and exhaling? Zone in on that. Take another deep breath. Exhale. Let your shoulders drop. Release any tension that's being held in your neck, your shoulders, your head. Now imagine scanning your body from head to toe and notice where you're feeling tightness. So as we start at the top of our head, go through your face and your neck, releasing any of that tightness that's being held there. Your shoulders, your chest, your back, your stomach, release any tightness and bring in softness with each breath. Imagine peace is filled instead of stress in those areas. Now imagine as we go through your legs, your hands, arms, all the body extremities, releasing any tension that you feel there. Tightness floats away, peace fills that spot. Take another deep breath and inhaling. I want you to ask yourself, what does my body need right now? Maybe it's more sleep. Maybe it's more movement. Maybe it's more alone time. Maybe it's a hobby. Maybe it's friendships. Maybe it's forgiveness. I want you to think about, what does your body need in order for you to feel more joy? See yourself giving your body what it's asking for. What would be the next step to gifting this to yourself? Listen to that answer. And take another deep breath. And I want you to feel what that joy feels like from doing that thing that you're listening to yourself, the need that you're listening to yourself. What is that joy that will come from doing that thing? I want you to feel that from the top of your head all the way down to your toes. Take another deep breath. And now you get to choose you. You get to choose doing something that's going to help you with this sustainable success. And if you've closed your eyes, you can go ahead and open them. If you're by your journal, this is a great time to write that thing out, or maybe type it in your notes on your phone if you're able to. Because oftentimes we forget the inspiration that we have throughout the day, and we forget what we really need to do for ourselves. And I want you to take this time to do something for yourself as a pattern, not just a one-time thing, but something that you need to infuse into your life to help you have that sustainable success and to bring in more joy. This journey in life and business is about having joy, but we get to be the founders and the creators of those joyful moments and of those joyful patterns. I cannot wait to introduce to you this guest, Sailynn Doyle. She is the Fun Business Coach, and that's actually her brand, is the Fun Business Coach. So this is perfect. She knows firsthand what it takes to break through the six-figure ceiling. From working 5 jobs in 7 years to building a multi-million-dollar empire, she's generated over $17 million in sales. Today, she coaches 6-figure women entrepreneurs who are ready to join the 2% and scale to 1 million. But her story isn't just about the numbers. It's about facing burnout, almost walking away, and the discovery what it takes to create sustainable success. Now, I can't wait for you to meet her and hear her story and jump into her human design chart. Remember, if you haven't pulled your human design chart from my site, it's in the show notes. It will give you insights into what you can do to help you have this sustainable success. And you can also get a full reading and see all the gifts that you were born with and all the magic that you bring to this world. So can't wait to see you inside the episode. Sailynn, thank you so much for being on the show today. I'm so excited that you're here today. I'm so excited that we get to dive into your human design chart and see all the gifts that you were born with, as well as the challenge that has really shaped you.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here today. I have to say, this was like the highlight of my week. I was like, what?
I know. I was really excited. I was like seeing it on my calendar this morning. I'm like, yes. We get to do this. It's so great. Well, Sailynn, can you share the story of the moment that you almost sold your company? And what were you feeling and what did burnout look like for you then?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I started my business in 2006, I had the insight, I
Yes.
had this idea that everything was just going to be amazing. I would reclaim control over my time and my money, and everything was going to be wonderful. And then fast forward 3 years, I was sitting in my car on a weekday at 9 a.m. crying my eyes out when I should have been celebrating hitting $1 million in business, but instead I had just covered a 3-hour shift for a team member who had called out sick again. And, I had been working 80-hour weeks for 3 years. And so, sure, I had $1 million business and a 6-figure salary, but I had absolutely no life. I had, destroyed my relationships. My health wasn't great. And at that point, I was truly ready to like hang up the for sale sign because I said, if this is what success looks like, I'm out. And so that was really that draw a line in the sand moment for me that something had to change.
Yeah. And when you were looking back on that time, I always dive into what is interfering with our success, right? What's making it not sustainable? And that's like overworking or over busy, these patterns that sabotage us over and over again that I work with my clients on, and or perfectionism. What do you feel like kind of was like at the root of that?
I think it really comes down to the brainwashing from my parents, right? That and society norms that, I was always taught that I could have anything I wanted. All I had to do was work for it. And
Mm.
so many of us are taught that, right? But when we become an entrepreneur, we like 10x that and we take it to that next level. And what I realized is that hard work does not guarantee success, right? Like, I'm sure that you've worked hard on something before. It might be like a recipe that you wanted, and you had this beautiful Pinterest like vision of what it was going to look like. In the end, it ended up being this total flop. And you worked hard to like mix all the ingredients and do all of those kinds of things, but it didn't guarantee that it was going to come out a success. And so for me, I think it was just more that brainwashing and what we're taught. And unfortunately, hard work doesn't guarantee success. If it did, then everyone who worked hard would be successful. And the staggering sad statistic that I'm trying to break is that only 2% of women entrepreneurs get to achieve $1 million. And I personally think that's crap because there's no secret to a million. And I don't want women to have the same experience that I did sitting in their car crying their eyes out when they should have been celebrating. I want you to actually be like, yes, like I've built a business that I'm not only proud of and is successful, but it's successful on the inside. It's supporting that
Mm.
epic dream life that I've always wanted as an entrepreneur.
Yes, and that overworking, that the more work that I do, the more success that I'll have, the more um business that I'll bring in, the more. Overworking is all about the more. And it really is a lie. Like one of the things I found in my journey with MS is that like I do a lot less, but I do it really efficiently. And I'm like, well, we're not going to do that because that's going to take too much time or too much energy, but it really streamlines the whole process and has made me so grateful for this part of this journey is that it's really helped me to understand like I don't need to overwork. I don't need to do things the whole long list. I just need to focus in on what's the key things that will move the needle forward. And that's honestly enough, and to really like transform that. So with this like overworking pattern, did you feel like you had to prove yourself then through this process?
I think, yeah, definitely. I mean, I had no entrepreneurship in my family, right?
Mhm.
I was the first one. And I mean, lucky for me, my boyfriend was an entrepreneur. He was in a family business. And so I was able to watch him, but I didn't have any firsthand experience. And I worked in healthcare. I didn't have any experience really with that either. And so it was more just thinking that I had to do everything. I bought a franchise and the franchisor said, say yes to everything. Well, I did. But the problem is it was like it built this big beast of a business that, no longer made me happy. Sure, I had money coming in, but I had no time to enjoy it. And I think what you just said is so important, right? When we look at what actually moves the needle to grow our business, we can simplify. And it was almost the craziest thing because after that moment in the car and I drew that line in the sand, it was something changed because my hours almost drastically cut in half very quickly. And it was like I finally started saying like, no, I'm not going to go to that just because I feel like I have to. No, I'm not going to do that. Someone else can. I'm doing this anymore. And so I think, for a lot of us, unfortunately, something major has to happen, whether it's like a health scare or, sometimes even death or, you're at a breaking point in order for us to get that wake up call to say, like, something has to change.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like it has to almost gets very close to crashing and burning everything down before we're like, wait a second, I guess this isn't sustainable. I guess I should do something different? And I think that's too like with the entrepreneur and the founder journey, that there's a lot that goes into it, there's a lot of work. It's not this like we leave it at work, even mindset. Our mind is like in this half work, half rest state a lot of times. And our identity is in that business, as well. And so what helped you get really clear about like, okay, I know this really sucks, but what do I do next? Like,
Well, it's so funny because at that point where I'd covered that shift, I had been up since 4 a.m. I had just worked with a client. I was like dirty and all of this. So I had been going to my parents' house and showering and then working another 10-hour rest of my day. And so I went to my parents' house and my mom was like, you need to talk to someone. And so she connected me with a friend who was a coach, and I was so embarrassed about it, right? Like,
oh,
I remember putting it on my calendar as like a hidden appointment, like no one knew what it was. And like we met at this like shady little diner farther down in the plaza. And I remember, like, going out the back door of my office and so no one could see me, and, like because as women, I think we're, like, told that, like, we need to be able to do it all, and we need to be able to fix it, and you're a problem solver, and why can't you handle this? And so I was embarrassed and disappointed in
yes.
myself, but I met with him, and I was like, "Okay, you're the professional, let me just vomit everything wrong." And at the end of that, he basically said to me that I had 3 things I needed to work on, and the big overarching theme was my business lacks systems, right?
Mm.
And so I was like, it can't be that simple. Like, I really doubted that advice. But then what happened was one of my team members again came into my office later that week and said something. And as I'm saying to myself, like, I've told you this a million times, why are we having this conversation again? I said to myself, you know what? That night, I'm like, let me look at the system she's supposed to be using. And I was like, oh, it's like broken and outdated. And so I stayed late again that night and I tore it all apart. I made it better. And I said to her the next day, here's the system that I want you to use. And a couple weeks went by and I was like, wow, she hasn't asked me that question. And I was like, oh my gosh, he was right. And so that really sent me on a journey of really kind of tearing my business apart behind the scenes and figuring out like all of the things that needed to be improved so that way I could be taken out of the day-to-day weeds, right? And that insight from someone outside of your business, your circle, right? And that's why coaching is so huge. Is that insight opened my eyes to, wow, he could see what I couldn't.
Yes, and that support is so vital. I think so many times we think, well, I should be able to do this on my own. I should be, and especially like we should be able to figure this out. We're kind of figuring it out kind of people, you know? We're
Yep.
going to go into it and like figure things out and get things going and move the needle. And I was talking to one of my clients yesterday in our session, and she's like, I was so stuck on this and I was trying to figure this out. And I'm like, well, that's why we're talking. That's why we have each other. Let's talk it out. And then there's so much more progress and
Mhm.
more sustainable progress that can be made when we link arms together. And I think that we need to make more of those opportunities of linking arms, whether it's through a coach or a mentor, just even our own physical and emotional support as well is so vital to this journey. We're not going to get there unless we have a team behind us and whatever that team looks like.
Exactly. And the name of my company is Passion, Purpose, Posture. And everyone always says to me, what does posture mean? Right. And I said, it's having the confidence to like lock arms with like another woman in whatever role
Mhm.
and running to the top together. Right. So whether that's like a coach, a mentor, a friend, another person in your industry, but it's knowing that like you don't have to go this alone and you have the confidence to bring other people with you and tell them the same thing. And so I think that's so true. And business just isn't the same as it was so many years ago. Back in the day, it was so much simplified, but now with so much technology and we're in information overload. And so that is causing so many of the women that I work with to not only have that shiny object syndrome where it's like bouncing all around, but it's indecision and overthinking because you're like, should I do this? Should I not do this? And sometimes you just need that outside perspective in order to say like, okay, well, let's work through this, right? Like, what is the
Yes.
benefit of doing it? What is the benefit of not doing it?
Yeah.
And sometimes just literally a 5-minute conversation can get you unstuck and back on track.
Yes. And that support, it's almost silly not to have that support. Do you know what I'm saying? If like all the big goals and the dreams and the 6 and 7 figures, like that
Uh,
people want to get to, and that we're all like, that's what we need is that support, and
Yep.
that is just so beautiful to have that on the journey. And especially knowing that it will help us to be better, all of us, like there's no stage in life that I feel like I don't need help to grow. Do you know what I'm saying? Right? There's no stage in business where I'm like, I arrived, because there's always the next benchmark to get to. So, and this
Exactly.
leads so right on into your human design. It is, you are a generator. Now, for those who don't know what human design is, let's make sure we're on the same page. So, human design is like the Enneagram and the Strength Finders. It's another like personality assessment type of thing, but it's very unique and it is very layered in that it tells us, just from our date and time of birth, like, here's the gifts that you were born with. Here's how you operate best. Here's how you make decisions best, and all these beautiful layers of like what movements we can do to help us have sustainable success and not try and do it other people's ways, because our way is the best way for us. So
Yeah.
your way, your type is a generator. And the mantra for this is my energy lifts me and others higher. So
Mm.
you have the ability to have lots of sustainable energy, and you have the ability to be a natural cheerleader for others. Your energy sparks momentum in other people. It allows them to see like, "Oh, okay, I can do this too." They can just exchange a feeling between each other, and you lift others up with your energy. You can hit tough goals and you can cheer other people on to hit their goals that they want to get to as well. And have you noticed this energy lifting people around you?
Yeah, so it's so funny. Everything you just said is so spot on. As a business coach for women, I mean, sure, we talk strategies and systems
Mhm.
and all of those kinds of things, but a lot of what I do is be the cheerleader they need and have the confidence in them until they have it in themselves,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And I was just telling that to a client yesterday. I was watching her lead an event and I was like, you should see these women just like watching you as a leader. And she was like, I don't see it. And I'm like, not yet, but you will. And like someone sent her a follow-up saying, like, this was the most amazing meeting I've ever been to, right? And I'm like, see, they do see it. And so, that's the thing. And it's so interesting because I would say out of all the feedback I've gotten in my life, because I've probably been coaching women for 25 years, since college, indirectly, is so many of them use the same word, inspire. You inspire me to
Oh.
XYZ. And I actually have a bracelet that I wear that says inspire as a reminder that that is my path. So I feel like everything you just said was like so on point and such a great reminder for me.
That's so beautiful. And it really is. It's like oftentimes we think about these gifts as like sometimes we're just like, this is just something I do, like, oh, it's just what I do. But it actually is what makes you special. And we can retrain our brain to say, you know what, this is like what makes me special. This is what I bring to the table. And I love using these things in like my marketing and when I'm talking to clients too, I'm like, I'm going to help you get to this other side because this is what I was born to do. And it
Mhm.
just really is so beautiful to see that natural energy backing you up and sharing that with others. That is a huge, huge gift. One other things with a generator is saying yes to the things that are a yes and saying no to the things that are a no. Now, you can do a lot with your abundance of energy, right? And so you've signed up for a lot. And you can get a lot done, let's be honest. Now at the same time with generators, it's really important to say yes to the things that are sparkly, that are filling you with joy. And then if it's a no, if it feels kind of blah or uninterested or more of a I have to, type of thing, being brave enough to say no. How has this has it been hard to tap into the yeses and hard to say no to the nos?
It's so interesting, right? Because I said to you, my franchisor told me say yes to everything, right? So I was programmed with that for, the first 3 years in entrepreneurship. And, of course, with the whole like FOMO movement and all of those kinds of things. But I was also the kid in college who like had enough at the party that I was like, I'm going home. Like, I don't care if it's 11 o'clock, right? Like, I'm done. So I think I've always had this balance with it. But I think as an entrepreneur, being a generator and like knowing that am a cheerleader for women, that I want to support them. So my challenge there is sometimes I say yes to things to support someone else that is not really a heck yes for me. So it could be like I am not a night person, and so it's like I might sign up to go do something, and then I'm like I'm so exhausted, And
Yes.
so those are the kind of things that I really, especially as your business grows, as I coach women on
Good.
this and knowing what your heck yeses are, right? And but also making that top of mind for myself. And so when I do say yes to something that should have been a no, I really journal about it. And I'm like, why did
Ooh.
you say yes? And how did it make you feel? And now you know not to do it again, right? Like I have a list of at the end of the year, I always make a list of the things I'm going to double down, further develop, and then ditch altogether. And there's always lots of ditches.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Yes, and it really is getting clear in the strategy, especially for a generator. Your strategy is to say yes to the things that are lighting you up, and that takes some time sometimes to like feel into. And so responding is really going to help with that. Responding to this feels really good, and that might take a little time to listen to see what that feels right, or if it feels like, I'm just being responsible or whatever, or feeling like I have to, or people pleasing, in order to like help that out. And the other part on your human design chart is your profile. Now, your profile is layers of your personality. It's made up of two numbers. You're a 5-1 and you're this challenge solver liberator. So the mantra for this is I solve problems with depth and I inspire trust. So you really have this like save the day energy about you. You're naturally likable, and others look to you for solutions to help them to save in whatever personally or professionally. And then this one is really about this investigator. You're driven to research and understand and feel what is like all the nuances of a problem or a challenge or a situation, whatever it is, and you research solutions and you research things. You love researching. And now with that, do you notice that you like to step in and kind of save the day? Have you noticed that about yourself?
Absolutely. I'm a huge problem solver. And that's why when I was in burnout and I had to get that outside perspective from a coach, I felt like a failure, right? I was
Oh,
ashamed
yes.
because I was like, how come I can't figure this out myself? And so I think it's amazing in some aspects, but it also can be something that I have to work on. And I think also, too, like that saving the day thing, like when someone comes to me with a problem, and I think this is why I've been inadvertently coaching women for 20 plus years, is because people will always be like, oh, I have a question about this, or what do you think about this? Whether it's life or business or their career or whatever. And like I automatically want to give them a solution. And the coach that I met with that day is he said I was a teller. And what he meant
Oh.
by that is he said your office is like a revolving door instead of an open door policy because people have a question and you tell them what to do. And he said instead of helping them think on their own, right? So that
Mhm.
completely aligns. And so when I shifted into coaching, this is something that I've personally worked on. It's to help clients like guide them versus give them the answer, right? I want them to come up with the answer on their own through guidance. But I did always say I would have liked to have been like an investigator or maybe like work for the FBI or something and search things out and figure them out.
Yes, yes, totally. Well, and it is really good to know, like, as well as like that we're helping guiding people, that you have this gift to be able to guide them to save and to empower them to do that. And then so how do you balance that? Because I think as women, we want to just like, we're going to help you. We're going to like, have compassion on your situation and get in there and help you to get across the finish line, whatever that finish line is. How do you balance solving everything without knowing that your worth is not tied to fixing the problem?
I think so much of it comes from maybe not necessarily a worth issue,
Mhm.
but more if we go back to what that coach said that I was a teller, is it's that whole saying of, if you give a man a fish, he will, always have something to eat or whatever the
Yes.
saying is, right? But if
Yes.
you teach him how to fish, he'll, be able to eat forever. And so when you're constantly fixing other people's problems, they're always going to come to you versus when you guide them to come to a solution on their own, you're teaching them a skill that they can then go use in other things. And that's what I teach in my
Mm.
signature program is I'm like, I'm teaching you skills that you can use no matter where you are in your business, going forward. Like I want you to understand these fundamentals so that way when I'm not around, you can make those decisions on your own and feel that confidence. And I think it also just, it truly sets you free. I mean, when I stopped being that teller, right, and I gave my team the tools and the technology they needed, they no longer needed me, which definitely self-worth, right? You're like, oh, you
Yes.
don't need me, right? But when you realize that is the secret to scaling a business, it's a mindset shift, and you really realize that instead of keeping people coming to you all of the time, you've
Mhm.
given them so much more by giving them a skill that they'll use for the rest of their life.
Yes, giving them a skill. I love that. Giving them that skill for the rest of their life. And the strategy for this part of your human design chart is really balancing helping and maybe that overgiving, because overgiving is an interfere with success, with boundaries, like allowing yourself to settle in and be like, wait a second, am I just stepping in to like fix it? Or can I show a pathway? Can I show a pathway that I can see and I can help navigate that with them? Now, when we're looking at your human design chart, we're looking at that body graph part where they have all these centers, and there are a lot centers on human design are a lot like kind of like chakras. They're energy centers where they have gifts that we were born with. Some of the energy centers are colored in white, and some are colored in green. And the green ones are gifts that you always have all the time. They're always on. And the white ones are gifts that come in ebbs and flows, kind of like the ocean. There's sometimes they're there, sometimes it's not. And one of your white centers is your intuition center. And so this means that you are really connected with other people, that you can really feel their fears, that you can feel their anxieties and their intuitive hits as well. And you're gonna get your own, of course, in ebbs and flows. But the mantra for this is I feel others' fears, but I don't have to carry them as my own. They're information, not to hold. And but it also what is so beautiful about this open white center is that you get information, you get connection, you get this deep gift of empathy. This is one of the empathy centers on human design. And because you are so connected with others, how have you seen this help you in your career?
It's so interesting because I am definitely not a sympathetic person, but I've always been able to empathize with people. And I probably lack sympathy because my mom was a certain way with me as a child. I mean, it was like, oh, you're sick? That's okay. Go to school anyways. You know what I mean? Like, just those kinds of like programming as a child. I know that I, like, can feel what other
Mhm.
people are going through. Like, it's easy for me to resonate with
Mhm.
people and put myself in their shoes. Like, I can imagine that in my head. Like, I'm not a
Yes.
mom, but I work with a lot of moms, and very often I'll say to them, like, "You feel like this?" And they're like, "Yes." And I'm like, "Okay, right?" But one of the things that I've really had to learn to do
Yeah.
as an entrepreneur is shut down, right? Because one of the signs of burnout is not being able to go to sleep, waking up with, panic attacks at 3 a.m. and those kinds of things. And sleep is like fixes everything in my world. I treat that like high end, like sleep is fixes everything. And so, my boyfriend and I talk about this all the time, but I have this really special gift or way that I can literally just shut my brain off and be like, I'm done.
Mm.
And so I've just learned these different things about myself that in order to be able to empathize with people, I can be there with them in the moment and then I can think about it for a little afterwards, but then it's over, it's done, and I have to move on. I don't hold
Yes.
on to it.
Yeah. Okay, so tell us your shut your brain down. What do you do for that? Because that is like everybody's in that listening, right? Are you raising your hands? You want to know? Let's okay.
Yeah, it's so interesting because my boyfriend is one of those people, definitely undiagnosed ADHD, and his brain just chugs 24/7. We were talking about this the other day, and I think what it was is I was a very introverted child. I still am an
Mhm.
introvert, and my parents say they were introverts, but they love to talk. And I, as a kid, really just wanted to like read my book, hang out in my room, like all of those kinds of things. And so as a kid, I learned to shut the world out so I could focus on reading my book. I loved to read as a kid. And so, like, no matter whether we were like in the car or at a restaurant or, there are like loud music everywhere, is I had this ability to just shut everything out and really zone in on that book. And that has allowed me in other places in my life to just shut everything off. And I think it's just a skill you learn. And what it ultimately comes down to is being fully present, right?
Yes, I was thinking about that too. I was like, okay, what does it feel like to shut my brain down? I think what it is it's filtering out everything else that's going on and then really coming back into our bodies. And, like with you were saying with reading, you're like, okay, I'm focused in on something. And I've been getting into Audible. Like I
Mhm.
used to read a long time ago and then I just didn't. And then Audible, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so into the story. I love it so much. So
Yeah.
great. But it's like things like that that really anchor us in being able to turn one thing off so that we can really have the energy and the ability to move forward and do other things. We're not so drained, that type of, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's that shut off switch, and that shut off switch comes by being 100% present in what you're trying to do.
Yes.
And so it does take practice, right?
Yes.
And I've just learned as I've gotten older, I really need to focus on it because it wasn't as easy as it was when I was a kid, right? You don't have as much going on in your life.
Yes.
But nowadays is it's like, okay, like focus. Like my phone is on silent 24/7. Like,
Yes.
just different kinds of things like that. And so that allows me to really shut things off and be able to go to sleep and get my amazing 9 hours of sleep.
Oh my gosh, I'm a 9-hour girl too. Life changing. It is so
Totally.
good. It is everything. And I agree with you. I am a champion for that sleep fixes everything. Get like when I'm like, why do I feel like I want to burn my whole life down? I'm like, oh, I'm just tired. And I'm like, okay, well then you need to take a rest or you need to like take better care of myself and like all these things. I'm like, wait a second. I think I'm just tired.
Exactly. Sleep fixes everything. If I'm having a bad day, I take a nap. If I'm
Yes.
tired, I take a nap. If I don't feel good, I take a nap. If I can't figure something out, I take a nap. Like, just gives my brain a moment to rest.
Yeah, and permission to do so. And one of the things that and my health journey has really taught me too is like I get to listen to my body. I get to say when I'm tired, I get to do something about it and I take a nap every day. And I used to beat myself up for like, why do you need this? What's wrong with you? But now I'm like, it's an honor to listen to my body and what it needs. And everything changes when I just infuse more rest into my life. It's like it's literally a miracle worker.
It is. It's a secret hack.
Yes, it's the best. Oh my gosh. Well, also on your chart, when we're looking at that body graph, there's all these lines on there, right? Now, the lines that are colored in, some of the lines that are colored in are longer and some are shorter. And when they're longer, they're considered channels, and when they're shorter, they're considered gates. They're both basically the same thing. They're layers that of gifts that you were born with. They're a lot of times we think about these characteristics. They're little characteristics that you were born with. And so this gate that just stood out to me is gate 44. And the mantra for this is I use patterns to create my future. You have this gift of pattern recognition, seeing cycles, spotting red flags, pending outcomes, all these nuances of patterns. And you can extrapolate, okay, wait a second, this is where this is going to go, you know? And it helps really build those long term strategies and avoid repeated mistakes. So, how do you find yourself noticing these patterns in your business or personal life?
My gosh, that's such a good one. Like you threw me off on that one.
Yeah.
Patterns, so I am of the mindset like, take messy action, right?
Yes.
And whatever the result is, good, bad, whatever, it's a result, right? It's
Yes.
not necessarily a mistake. We're going to learn from it. And so I would say if there's anything kind of along those lines is I don't beat myself up for any of the actions that I take or don't take, right? Like if I'm like, okay, I'm going to do my morning routine like every single morning and then I get up and I just don't feel it that day, like I don't beat myself up. I just do it the next day. And so, I think when you talk about patterns, it's more recognition of just again being aware of like what's worked in the past, what hasn't worked in the past, and how do we not repeat the things that didn't go well. Like when I had a big team, I encouraged them to make decisions, right? That's how I was able to work 16 hours a week. I'm like, make decisions. If it doesn't go well, we'll fix it. What are you going to do? And so I think that's something that I try and encourage other women to do because overthinking and feeling stuck and indecision is just keeping you where you are. You have to take action in order to get a result. And then you learn from that, good, bad, or whatever.
Yeah. And this gift is really about being good at strategy, right? And strategy is not necessarily perfection. Strategy is just like, okay, I think this is from what I'm feeling inside and what we know. We're going to like see this and move forward in this way, you know? And I think that's the beautiful part about our journey is that some things are going to work and some things are not. And not to take it personally. It's not a personal thing if things don't work out. I'm like, guys, we're not here to be perfect. And when we figure that something doesn't work, guess what? It helps us to figure out what does, you know? Like there's just only a way to do it. And I actually find so much beauty in whatever failures I happens. I'm like, that didn't work. Okay, let's move on, you know? I don't take identity with the failures.
Exactly. And that's so important. I think especially for women is, I was on a call the other day and they were asking like, how come you haven't done something or what is
Yes.
holding you back? And so many people put, I'm overthinking or what if or indecision or I'm stuck. And that's just never how I've been as a person. Like I always just jump. I'm not a huge risk taker. I wouldn't consider
Yes.
myself, but I jump and I look for a result and see what happens, right? And I figure if no one died, then we're doing okay. So
My goodness, I do that too. I'm like, no one's gonna die. I think we're okay, actually. You know,
mhm,
like the whole like, yeah, no one's gonna die reframes a lot and is so helpful, you know? And it's not taking identifying with the pivots, being brave enough to be like, you know what, that didn't work. We're gonna try something else. And we're gonna figure it out and it's going to go well. And also one thing that helps me with that is really maintaining my vision, you know? What's my vision for this? My company? What's the vision I have for my future? What's the vision I want to bring? And I'm always on with that. And whatever, like however we get to where we're going, I'm like, okay, it's a pathway. We also get to have fun. This can be really fun, you know? And when it's not fun, then I think that sustainability really falls off.
yeah, very true. I mean, that's why, hello, I'm the fun business coach,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and how I love that you say that. So how have you seen that piece because when we talk business a lot of times we're not talking about fun. But how has that dynamic of bringing that in changed everything?
Well, it was so funny because after I sold my senior home care business, I got into direct sales. I was looking for something lighter, than working in healthcare. And my marketing coach was basically like, Sailynn, you love business, go be a business coach. And I was like, yeah, but business coaches are like old white men that are overweight and balding. And she was like, then make it your own. And I was like literally a shower moment. I was like, I am the fun business coach, right? And it's been a conversation starter since then. And that was 3 years ago. And now it's just one of those things where I think really what I try and convey to women is like, life doesn't have to be so heavy and serious. Like, we all have stuff going on, right? Like, you have MS, like so much goes on. Like I've had health issues and it's like great, but don't let them take over your life. And
Yes.
after working with seniors for 10 years at the end of their life and not one of them ever saying to me, I wish I had worked more. And no, they all said to me their regrets of, I wish I had a better relationship with my spouse. I wish my kids were coming to visit me and not you. I wish I had taken that trip, like all of those different kinds of things. It really is, I think, such a wake up call for life that it's
Yes.
really like, yeah, this is business and you want to be successful and you want to do all of those things, but you get one life and you don't know when yours is over. So live it, do what you got to do.
Yes, do I know, live it, and that's I think that's one of the perspectives that with my health that I have really leaned into is that I get to choose a life of fun and not heaviness. I get to choose to make memories. My husband and I went to Florida and travel for me is hard, but I'm like, but we got to go to the beach and like be at this beautiful resort. And I was like, this is exactly the times that we're gonna look back on and be so happy that we took and that we paused and really made our life ours instead of someone else's or instead of something that we're supposed to make. So, Sailynn, this has been so amazing. I have loved like every minute of this conversation. I know that our audience wants to jump into your world and get connected with you. So I would love for you to share where they can do that best.
Yeah, so the best place to connect with me is on social media. It's at
Yeah.
Sailynn Doyle, pretty much. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, even TikTok. That's the best place to kind of follow along. But if you're looking to get into my world and learn more about how I help women, they can go to my website at www.passionpurposeposture.com.
Perfect. Oh my goodness, this is awesome. So again, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been amazing.
Thank you so much. I truly enjoyed this. This was fun.
I love it. And listeners, thank you so much for being on the show today. It means the world to me. I see all your comments. I see everything that you say and it just means the world that we're together in this journey and we're linking arms. If you can take a moment to rate the podcast, to subscribe, it helps these messages go throughout the world even more. And I'm just so grateful you're here. If you haven't pulled your human design chart, go onto my site, pull your human design chart. You'll see the gifts that you were born with, and you can start understanding yourself at a greater level and really understanding what a beautiful being you are and how fun that this journey of being a female founder can be. And remember that peace is a strategy that makes success sustainable. We'll see y'all in the next episode.